Yeah.
For you, I am willing to scat the original theme.
This just in. Brian's willing to scat the opening theme.
Let's do it. Jung, 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 jee, jung, 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 jing, jing, jung, 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 jing, jing, doo 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 doo.
Welcome to Cordkillers Reckoning. The world of entertainment is turned upside down, and we're just trying to find out how to watch what we want, where we want, whenever we want. I'm Tom Merritt. Where's the good stuff, Brian Scatman?
Oh my gosh. I mean, the good stuff is apparently spewing out of my mouth. But outside of that, there's lots of news. Where should we begin, Tom?
Well, we should begin by letting folks know that Brian is working his hardest to deal with a lot of issues. We're not going to go into all of them, but that's why there's no music or sound effects on this episode. What we do have for you is the best Cordkillers content you can find on the internet, bar none.
Let's go on a
Supply run.
We're running.
The New York Times has an article called The Strange $55 Million Saga of a Netflix Series You'll Never See. It tells the story of director Carl Rinch, who made 47 Ronin. You might describe 47 Ronin as a flop. Carl Rinch might describe it as How I Met Keanu Reeves. Carl Rinch got $50 million or so from Netflix to make a sci-fi series that never finished an episode. Now, I think what people are seeing when they see this headline and maybe even read the story is they gave a failed director $50 million. Oh, that Netflix, they just threw money around back in 2018. They were profligate. And then you look up to make sure you use that right. This is an example of how streaming and Hollywood and capitalism are all wrong. I read this article, Brian, and I thought, man, this is a sad story. 2018 was definitely a time where people were taking bets on things, but Carl Rinch had won an award at Cannes Lion International Advertising Festival in 2010. He had studied film at UCLA. He was well regarded as a talent, and 47 Ronin didn't do great, but it was worth a shot to give him $50 million to make a series, because $50 million isn't that much money to make a series. He got an 8-figure deal to make a 10-episode series based on the fact that he had already made 6 4 to 10-minute episodes on his own with his own budget. So he had proof of concept. He showed them a story. They said, hey, this has got the makings of something. If you actually had a budget to do full episodes, I think it would be better. Brian, what did you make of this story?
Well, I for reasons we'll explore, I understand why people would perceive this to be a money sinkhole, a scam, for lack of a better word. But really, so far, everything you've said has been the story of emerging talent, and emerging talent is the sweet spot to spend your money on, because
especially back in 2018 when we were in the everybody needs to expand, more shows.
Correct. Like there are 3 ways to spend your money on talent. There's unproven and proven and emerging. You hope to find emerging. That's where you spend money on Christopher Nolan when he's doing Memento. That's where you spend money on Keanu Reeves just after Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and so on. So it's like that is the goal. That is the dream, is to capture talent as it is emerging. So it's not a bad bet, and it's not a bad thing to follow up on a bet, because we've seen a lot of stories of detailed narrators who keep on descending deeper and deeper, and they need more and more money, and then it ends up being, your Blade Runners or something else wonderful. So I don't want to fault him for any of that. It is a fairly complicating aspect that COVID happened, but it also sounds like, per the story, and I'm sure you can give us details, it sounds like there was a little bit of personality difficulties as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't go so far as to say Wrench did nothing wrong because they never finished an episode. He never delivered an episode. He got a lot of the money. He did some rather questionable things with money, including investing it in cryptocurrency, which honestly didn't fail. He actually made a lot of money on cryptocurrency, but then went and spent that money on things like cars and stuff. So, yeah, there's a lot of things Rich did wrong. But I think what people are looking at this New York Times story sometimes and saying is they should have known. And I don't think they should have known. I will blame Carl Rinch for the things that Rinch did wrong, but I don't necessarily think Netflix was irresponsible. They just didn't expect him to act in this way. Yes, he made a movie that wasn't terribly successful, but yes, apparently he had been very difficult. And that's one thing the Times did point out is that Scott Stuber had worked with him on 47 Ronin, knew he was difficult. And Stuber was working at Netflix, but apparently no one ever ran this by him. So maybe there's that amount of like him maybe putting a cautionary comma on this, but it's not like Wrench acted for 47 Ronin the way he acted here. And
So,
people being difficult is not new in Hollywood.
one thing that I find that media in general is not super great at, or at least not great to my satisfaction, is distinguishing when they say Netflix spent $55 million on this director. Do they mean they wrote a check for 55 million to the director, or do they mean they committed $55 million to the budget of this project
Yeah,
and the
right.
project didn't work out? Like, it's astonishing to me that virtually nobody seems interested in differentiating the two.
Yeah, and I think that's partly because Wrench took the money that was written as a check to his production company and used some of it for what appears to be personal issues. He disputes that. He says no, that's not what happened. They're distorting the facts and all that. Um, but Netflix is saying no, no, no. We gave your production company this money. You ended up with a bunch of cars and stuff, and you never made an episode. I think the fact that he never ended up making an episode is telling that he wasn't delivering on what Netflix wanted, and he was given time to do it, and they just weren't seeing progress.
Well, this is difficult because there's a lot of different ways I can see this. If I wanted to
Weird
play,
Ami says, "Well, you're allowed to spend your pay how you want."
I mean, quite
But it's
literally,
not his pay. It's funding for a company to make episodes that he's contracted to make.
but also it's like, you kind of get to deliver whatever you feel like delivering, and then that becomes part of your legacy and your name. So it's like
But you have to deliver something.
I mean, correct. And so let's
Yeah.
say he, turned on a webcam and said, do sci-fi something. I did a thing.
He didn't even do that though. Like at least that would have made it more interesting. Yeah.
Well, man, it's really tough to tease out because this Times article is a little bit harsh on him as being. I noticed the use of the word erratic, which
Mhm.
is kind of a scarlet letter that subtly anybody in Hollywood can throw at anybody else. It's like if you want to explain why you fired anybody, just say the word erratic and that'll do it.
Make sure you use an A though, not an O.
Erratic?
No, an A, not an O.
Oh, a what?
When you're saying erratic, don't accidentally say an O where you should say an A.
Is is this a joke I don't know?
Erotic. I'm just trying to make a joke.
Oh, got it. Okay, all right. Yeah. You know what? That was a good joke, and I just missed it. Thank you very much, Tom. I
That's fine.
appreciate
That's fine.
like
It's all good.
I don't mind that I didn't get the joke. I would only be afraid that it was something like
No,
my
no, it was not
15-year-old would
worth
have
your
gotten
time.
that I would not.
Let's move on. Yes, erratic is subtext for for lots of stuff, right?
Yeah, and so Hollywood makes a lot of bad bets, and one of the most easiest to think of is Jodorowsky's Dune. Is
Oh,
that right?
right. Yeah, they spent a lot of money on that, and they got a very nice book of sketches out of it.
Yeah, and
Some of which ended up in Star Wars by some accounts.
the I don't know how to feel about this. Like the the part of me that hates Hollywood is like, well, you pulled the tiger's tail. What did you expect? It's like
Mm,
that's Hollywood. But the other part of me is like Hollywood is a habitual gambler, and they need to place a lot of bets. And no, not all of them are going to pay off, but enough of them hopefully will pay off that they'll do just fine, and
yeah.
that will bring us a bunch of movies. Now, how much of this is the erratic nature of the project manager, and how much of it is, I don't know, the global tire fire that was the pandemic? Who am I to say?
And honestly, that works both ways, right? It's not only the tire fire that was the pandemic in 2020 that hurt Netflix, but that may be one of the reasons that Wrench was having as difficult of a time as is described here. And the New York Times, to their credit, acknowledges that. Like during the pandemic, Wrench's behavior started to appear to be worse. And that's true of a lot of people. A lot of people, had a much harder time dealing with the restrictions during lockdowns and such in 2020. And so that may have set him on a path where he might have been able to cope and make his episodes while being difficult. And 2020 made it so that he couldn't. He's still suing Netflix. Well, he's not suing. He's in arbitration because he claims they still owe him money. So he is claiming I delivered. I delivered on the principles of the contract, and they haven't paid me all the money that they're supposed to pay me. Maybe I didn't deliver an episode yet, but that's their fault, not mine.
That's interesting. Do you think, like, I don't know how much Kremlinology goes into this,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like, do you think that the mere fact of this article being in the New York Times was behind the scenes, pushed by Netflix PR people and
Oh,
all?
now you're getting into some Justin Robert Young level journalism
I'm just
analysis, right?
saying.
Who benefits from this story the way it is told? Clearly, Netflix benefits from this story the way it is told because it makes Wrench look bad. Now, on the other hand, the way the New York Times spun the story, it also makes Netflix look bad. But maybe that's good cover. Maybe Netflix is like, everybody thinks we're a capitalist pig anyway. Like, one more story about this isn't going to hurt us that much. Hurts Wrench more than it hurts us.
That was a very deftly deflected answer to the question. Like if you were going to place a bet, do you think that this was like gumshoe, journalism, or do you think that a PR person from Netflix made some calls and said, "Hey, man, here's a story."
Oh, these things are never one or the other, right? They're usually, I heard from a friend about this thing. Oh, let me make a call. And then, well, I can't officially comment, but if you want to meet for a drink, I'll let you know a thing. And then, badoop, badoop, badoop. Next thing you know, you've got the story. So, the question is, where did the reporters from the New York Times first hear about this story? Was it from a source at Netflix, or did they just hear about it and start looking into it? It could go either way. This might have been just on the grapevine, everybody talking about like the total disaster that was Conquest, which was the name of the show, and then the reporter starts looking into it, and Netflix decides, you know what, let's start leaking some drips and drops that benefit us. I'm not saying that is what happened, but it is a scenario that could happen.
Tom, I am a very, very good skeptic about everything except for one thing: corporate conspiracies. When it comes to, like, why would you bother to actually blow up that plane when you could just, fake it? I'm instantly, and part of it comes from my experience with working with Hollywood types. Like,
Sure.
very often they fake things that don't even need to be faked. If I was going to place a bet, I would probably bet that this is a Netflix planted story. Which also, how often do we hear about name some stories of things that never happened outside of that Dune project that took a lot of money? Because almost all of them eventually get released, but they're just bad. Your Ishtars, your Dunes,
Yeah,
your et
and
cetera.
let's not pick the recent Warner Brothers movies that got canceled, because that's a different situation than we're talking about.
Correct.
Like, what are things that just never got made, not got made and then shelved for tax reasons? That's a good question. I don't know if
Yeah,
anybody
yeah,
in the
yeah,
chat
yeah.
or if anybody wants to email us those. That I love that question.
Didn't we have a recent story about that? I think it was Batgirl that was.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying is Warner Brothers has made and shelved multiple movies now. Batgirl was one of them. But that's different than what we're talking about here, which is we funded it and it never got made. Like, it just never happened. Because Batgirl, everybody who produced Batgirl fulfilled their obligations and got paid. They just decided not to put the movie out for tax reasons. This is Jodorowsky's Dune, right? Which is, we spent a lot of money funding this thing and it never got made.
So, okay. All right. All right. This is Brian Not Fooled, conspiracy theorist Brian.
Cordkillers@gmail.com if you have examples.
Cordkillers@gmail.com.
Oh, Superman 5 with Nick Cage says Fool to Dream.
Let's say $15 million was what was left on the tab. It seems to me like somebody somewhere at Netflix might have just said, how much are lawyers? $500,000, $1 million? Great. Let's just, let's take half of it, the lawyers, the other half, PR, to, make it look like we're the good guys and he's a crazy person.
Yeah. And that could help in arbitration. They could point to the story and say, like, you're right, Mr. Arbitrator, Madam Arbitrator. There's clearly a public perception of a pattern of misbehavior, not substantiated by us, reported by the New York Times. They've discovered their own sources on this. Like, yeah,
I hate it. I hate sounding like a crazy person, Tom. I'm really, I hate it, but I that's the shortest line.
So what you're saying is, this may not have been the greatest television show. This may not have been the greatest funding decision, but it just might be the world's greatest con.
Well, that sounds like a different idea altogether.
Yeah.
I'm mostly here to tell people to head
That's
on
some
over
kind
to
of Disney story.
patreon.com/, what's the name of the show? Cordkillers.
Yes, indeed, my friends. Patreon.com/Cordkillers is how we fund the show. And in lean times, sometimes the way to make sure you get the show. So listen, if you're a patron, thank you for being a patron. You are our priority. I hope that shows.
By the way, Tom, I can't believe that just by repeating the name of another show that I do, you were able to hypnotize me to where I wasn't able to remember what show we were doing right now.
It just drove it out. It's like, I can only have one of my shows in my head at a time. We are doing this show, honestly, Brian, like, no joke, right? We are doing this show right now because we have patrons.
Oh yeah. No. A lot of things are being rebuilt from scratch, and it's, if you've been a patron, if you're considering being a patron, it's these moments of transition that truly make the magic happen. And unlike those real wizards over at Netflix, we trust you to not make a New York Times article about how we mismanaged your investments.
Indeed. So if you can afford the $3.23 per episode we ask or more, head to patreon.com/Cordkillers. Let's begin the search party.
We're on a search party. Look what we found.
We found an article on Variety from Adam Very. It touches on a few different things, but one of the things Adam Very suggests is that Marvel could only write both its creative and financial prospects by nuking, in Very's words, the MCU and restarting with a brand new timeline built around the X-Men and the Fantastic Four.
Tom,
Yes, Brian.
depending on one detail, I may fully agree with this, or I may decide it's totally silly. My question is, does he mention the idea of setting it during the peak of the Cold War in the 1960s?
Not yet. I think Adam Very was like, I'll leave that up to the filmmakers, but let's just nuke and pave. Start fresh. Alternate universe. You've got this whole multiverse thing. Collapse all the multiverses. Start over. Build it around Fantastic Four and the X-Men, so you're not trying to recast Captain America too quick. And then just begin again. It's
So,
not like the Marvel comics haven't done the exact same thing multiple times.
I mean, Iron Man was what, a C plus hero at
Yeah,
the
right.
time that came out. It's like great. Turns out Fantastic Four was number 2 to Spider-Man himself, right? So set it in 1960. As a matter of
I
fact,
love that.
let me go one farther and say not only set it in the late 1960s at the height of the Cold War, but make the first movie Doom. Make it about a kid who's a teenager who is about to inherit the country of Latveria, who suffers this torture, this scarring or whatever, and happens to bump into a kid named Reed Richards at HoorayCollege.com, and then next movie is Fantastic Four. They go to space. They do something incredible. All still in the 1960s. I don't know. Something happens in space. They come back. It's still period, but then for some reason they're in the current, or maybe they're never in the current. You know what? I watched all of Mad Men. I was never once disappointed that they didn't suddenly jump to the 2020s.
Yeah.
Like, crazy idea. Just keep everything in the 1960s. Wouldn't that be great?
I love it. I love it. And you can slowly move forward. One of the things I liked about WandaVision is that we started with 50 style black and white TV shows. And then we went into the early 60s. Then we went into the early 70s. Then we went to the late 70s. And by the time we got to the 90s, I didn't feel like, oh, finally we're getting to the present. I was like, this has been a fun tour of nostalgia. Same thing with For All Mankind on Apple TV Plus. For All Mankind started with an alternate history that begins in the 60s and then slowly took you season by season through the 70s, through the 80s, and is now in the early 2000s. And I'm not thinking, oh, thank goodness we're getting close to our present time. I'm thinking this has been such a fun tour of an alternate universe, of a different timeline. Why not do that? I love this idea. Reset and start with the Fantastic Four in the 60s and then just go where the story takes you. You don't have to jump to the present. Stay in the 60s with Fantastic Four. Maybe X-Men is in the late 60s and then set whatever next movie wherever you need to set it that serves the story.
Chat room brings up another alternate universe, something I'm not familiar with it, called The Crown, where it was all set in the past.
Yeah, you know what? The Crown is doing the exact same thing I've just been describing. It started in the 40s, actually, with, the assumption of King George, and then moves through the ascension of Queen Elizabeth into the 60s, into the 70s, and now they're in the 90s. Now that and they're going to go on into the early 2000s. It's the same thing. I love it.
Okay, all right. Just final pitch on it. What if it's the MCU, but it never leaves the 60s? Just like Spider-Man in the 60s. Everybody in the 60s.
As long as it serves the story. That I don't care. If the story's great and it needs to stay in the 60s, that's fine. It's honoring the roots of Marvel that way, right? It's the Silver Age. It's the Silver Age storyline. I think if at some point you're like, boy, they seem to be keeping it in the 60s and it really would benefit from moving on into the 70s, then they should move it on. But to me, it's whatever's going to tell the best
Or they
story.
should go through a magical portal and find themselves in 2300 or something. And you're like, whoa, this is crazy future.
Exactly.
Thank goodness we're back in the 60s. And you can add all of that film grain in there.
Yeah,
You can
yeah.
do so many of that, those Quentin Tarantino touches that make things feel ancient and timeless. It'd be so good.
That is a very good idea that Adam Very and you have had.
You're welcome, Adam Berry.
and Kevin Feige, please enjoy. Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio have made a video that indicates they will co-star in a new Karate Kid picture directed by Jonathan Entwistle coming December 13th, 2014. Jackie Chan will return to the role of Mr. Han, who was a kung fu master based on Mr. Miyagi, but he coached Jaden Smith's Dre Parker in the 2010 remake of Karate Kid. So Jackie Chan played the Miyagi role, but it was a different role. He wasn't playing Miyagi, he was playing a Miyagi-like role. And Dre Parker was not Ralph Macchio. He was not Danny. They're doing a global casting call for the next Karate Kid. So it was Jackie and Ralph doing a video saying, hey, we're excited to make the next Karate Kid picture. You could be the kid.
Hey, Tom.
Yes, Brian.
I'm a pretty good skeptic, except for one thing.
When it comes to Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio.
When it comes to corporate conspiracies, because it's like, that'd be a lot of effort to actually do a casting call.
Oh yeah, no, they're
like
definitely
you already
not. Yeah.
know who the answer would be.
I'm with you on this. The global casting call is fun. I'm sure they'll make a lot of great YouTube content with it, and I'm sure the person they want to play Karate Kid may have already been selected.
I mean, I am certain that if under a with a microphone and a camera on them, they would say, we're open to whoever's best for the role, while quietly knowing that they know who's best for the role.
Or actually, maybe even more likely is like, we got 3 guys who we know would make a great Karate Kid, or 3 people, might not even be a guy, right? We have 3 people would make a great Karate Kid.
Hilary Swank comes back.
Make sure those 3 people audition and make it through the early rounds, and then we'll see what happens. Maybe we'll find a diamond in the rough. If not, one of these 3 ends up.
Meanwhile, I was sort of fascinated by the remake of the Karate Kid. Kind of happened at that peak moment where the US and China were cooperating on movies together. Like Tencent would spend millions of dollars on Moonfall and other stuff like that. It was really interesting how, yes, Jackie Chan was playing the archetype of Mr. Miyagi, but I ended up following a rabbit hole about the differences of karate. Karate's all about punch and strikes and forward kind of linear stuff, whereas Kung Fu is much more fluid and all that stuff. Of course, for marketing purposes, you want to call it the Karate Kid, so you can call it a reboot or leverage that brand value or what have you.
Taekwondo Kid. We haven't done that one.
The Jiu-Jitsu Kid.
Well, jiu-jitsu and karate are from the same country, though. Let's bring in some, maybe we do Krav Maga.
Brazilian jiu-jitsu kid.
Tim Allen says Disney has reached out to him and Tom Hanks about Toy Story 5. We mentioned on the show previously that Bob Iger said there would be a Toy Story 5, and so Allen is basically saying, "Yeah, no, I'm going to be part of it apparently," and so's Tom Hanks.
You know what? We have live audio from the actual recording. Here, let me just cue it up. Click, 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 click. Tim Allen, is it true you'd like another $1 million or 3? Yes. The end.
Great. Tom Hanks said the same thing. See you for Toy Story 5.
Yes. I actually don't know narrative wise where they can go from here, but I'd be curious to see them try.
Yeah, I like what you've been saying lately, which is like, I want more of the good things of franchises I love. So yeah, if they can pull it off again, I'm in. But and if they are going to try to pull it off again, it should have Tim Allen and Tom Hanks for sure. Speaking of people reviving their roles, Daisy Ridley told Collider that her role in another Star Wars film is, quote, not what I expected. It's Princess Leia. No, that's not what she said. Her full quote is, I'm very excited. The story is really cool. I'm waiting to read a script because obviously I don't have any other updates. It's not what I expected, but I'm very excited. This movie is being directed by Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, who did Ms. Marvel, the TV series, which I personally thought was excellent. So I'm happy about that. And the script is being written by Stephen Knight, who wrote for Peaky Blinders.
Okay, Tom, we're no longer journalists. We're just two friends.
Well, we never were journalists, so that's easy. All right, let's go.
Okay, so what kind of role would cause somebody to carefully say, sight unseen on the script, it's not what I expected?
That's not how she said it. That was not the tone of voice. I heard the podcast.
Oh, I mean, that's the accurate quote, though. Like, it's like she's in the background of a Street Fighter 2 game. She's a robot. She's a hologram.
I thought I'd be playing Ray. That's odd. Okay. Yeah. I fully accept that interpretation. That is a perfectly valid interpretation. The other side could be maybe it's a good role and Daisy is throwing a little shade on Rise of Skywalker. Like, it's not what I expected. It looks like a good story.
Okay. Tom, I want you as Tom Merritt to consider a role that you've been offered, some kind of contract, and somebody rushes up to you with a mic and says, "What do you think of your new gig?" And you say, "It's not what I expected." What things do you think of?
What things do I think of?
Oh yeah. Like what gigs would you personally do? Like for example, if I was given $2 million to be a mime, I'll take the $2 million
It's
and I'll
not what
be
I
a.
expected. Mm-hmm.
It's not what I expected.
Yeah. Singing. It's a musical.
Oh my god! Whoa, that would be good. Star Wars the musical.
It's not what I expected, but it's a great. She also says it's a great story. The story, or she says the story is really cool. So she obviously got a treatment, just not the script.
Yeah, but all stories are pretty cool.
I mean, all right.
Well, hold on. From the chat, what about a Star Wars reality show? She walks in character as Rey. It is just like, okay, welcome to Star Wars house. Only 2 of you will become Jedi.
What if it's a concert? Not even a musical. Like, it's Taylor Swift's Eras tour, but Star Wars.
This is I'm actually down for all of these.
Cordkillers@gmail.com. Let us know what it is. Please send us the script. Taylor Swift's Eras Tour movie will be available for purchase or rental starting December 13th, in case we got you excited by saying Taylor Swift's name.
Taylor Swift appears to be quite good.
You think she's going to make it?
And the concerts and the whatnot.
Yeah. Beyonce's Renaissance movie coming out this week. So more movie box office magic to be had. Let's find some buried treasure.
A buried treasure. A buried treasure.
Buried treasure.
Buried treasure.
Brian, what have you been watching lately?
Man, so Justin Robert Young came back from Europe, and it was the first time I'd seen him in nearly a month. And I said to him, "Oh my God, my daughter came home from college and she demanded that we watch more Detroiters. And I hate to say it, but I think Detroiters might be better than I think you should leave." And Justin responded with, why do you feel this perverse need to rank things? And to be honest, he's not wrong. It is perverse, and I shouldn't be ranking things. And also, I think Detroiters might be better than I think you should be. I think it might be great.
Point taken. Detroiters is very good. I think that's what we can all agree on.
Yes.
I try to be skeptical about most things, but I cannot be skeptical about why Brian thinks Detroiters is so good.
Well, basically, because as Justin put it today, he said, "Look, one is a sketch comedy, the other is a sitcom," and I was
So it
like,
wasn't what you expected.
"Well, no, it's Detroiters just radiates friendship and joy in a way that I only know with like 3 to 5 people in my life, including you.
Sure.
It's just like there's this one moment that unnecessarily Sam Richardson is leaving the room and Tim Robinson says, "Okay, I love and I trust you." Like it was so great. Like I'm like, yes, that's how friendship should be.
Yeah. No doubt. Okay, so Detroiters. You're watching more Detroiters. Detroiters is great. Anything else?
No, well, I mean, I'm cautiously walking through Invincible, but it's so good that I'm only doing like one a week, even though they're all out right now. You can get caught up super fast. If you've ever read a single comic book, you'll understand the oeuvre in which they're playing. It's excellent and supremely well written and awesome and beautiful and gross to watch.
Invincible is what I now think of as just to the right of the line. I have a string of things on my Apple TV where I rewatch, and there's an imaginary line beyond which I'm like, oh, I'll get to that next time. And like Invincible is the first show on that side of that line.
So
Things don't always stay on that side of the line. This is not a condemnation. It's just like, it's always the show. I'm like, oh yeah, I need to watch that, but not right now.
What about the boys? Is the boys?
Boys is farther to the right.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, in Invincible is basically it's a lot of the joy I get out of watching the boys, but in a non-awkward way that I can watch with my daughter.
With your daughter,
because it's only heads exploding and not actual genital being shown.
And it's animated, not reality. To the left of the line is For All Mankind. I'm very much enjoying that. Totally caught up on that this week. Also, Doctor Who is back with its 60th anniversary specials. There's 3 of them. The first one came out this weekend called Star Beast. David Tennant reprises his role. Catherine Tate reprises her role. And this is the first of the new Russell T Davies Doctor Who. He's the one who originally rebooted Doctor Who in the early 2000s. Yeah, with Christopher Eccleston and then Tennant before he handed it off to Stephen Moffat and Matt Smith. So it's Russell T Davies returning, and it feels that way in all the best ways. It is knowing that it is nostalgic and leaning into that and having fun, and I enjoyed it very much. However, if you're not a Doctor Who fan, I don't think this is your entry point. This is a celebration for people who have enjoyed Doctor Who in the past, especially if they enjoyed the David Tennant years. So if you drifted away during Capaldi or Jodie Whittaker, this is a time for you to come back. But if you never tried it, we're not there yet. I think what Russell T Davies is doing is saying, let me get you all back. Those of you who drifted away, who loved it. If you love David Tennant, come on back. Let's get you all back. Then once you're all back with Shudigatwa and the new series, I will start bringing in new people. So that's kind of my interpretation.
You totally answered the core question I had, which is this a good time to an entry point? If
I don't think
ever
so.
heard of it, no. Okay.
The other thing I watched this weekend, which surprised the hell out of me that I enjoyed, was Squid Game: The Challenge, the reality show based on Squid Game.
So this is one that I saw flashed up on my Netflix, preview, and I got to admit, I actively flipped away because I was thinking of like the Mr. Beast, YouTube videos, and I
Yeah,
didn't
it's
realize that maybe
nothing
I
like that.
sniped a bit of that or whatever.
It
Tell me about that.
it may not be everyone's cup of tea. I was ready to not like it. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to enjoy this. So if you went into it not thinking you wouldn't enjoy it, you might not enjoy it as much as I did because there is the delta, right? That I was like, wow, this is way better than I expected. But Eileen was like, I keep hearing good things. I keep hearing good things. I'm like, all right, I just want to see how they handle the elimination. So let's just watch the first 10 minutes, and then we can do something else. We ended up watching all 5 episodes that are out. There's 4 more to come later this week, and then the finale on December 5th. Um, the reason I kept going is that they kept to Squid Game, the TV show, in every way that you would want them to. So, for instance, Red Light, Green Light is on an outdoor set in the UK with the big doll and the glowing eyes and motion detectors. And if your motion is detected, you're eliminated. The way they handled the eliminations, obviously, they're not going to shoot people, but you also want something that actually, feels like Squid Game. So they all have squibs under their shirts. And
So they
when
all
they are
react getting
when they are
killed.
eliminated, the squib goes off, black ink, not red, seeps out, but in a liquid. And then they are instructed, I'm sure, to fall over, and they do. So they do that. Then they all go into the dorm. They have reconstructed the set of the dorm exactly. They all get crappy food. I'm going to guess they got better food off camera, to keep people happy, but they get like these little tins of crappy food. They all start making alliances. And they walk you through. They all know, okay, the cookie's next. They keep calling it the cookie. They don't know the word Dalgona. That's fine. They do a great job of introducing you to people and making you think, okay, so these must be the people survive, and killing some of them right away or eliminating them, like building them up and eliminating. So you never know, just because I was introduced to somebody doesn't mean they're going to survive, just like in the TV show. They do some adaptations because everybody knows the umbrella is the worst. So they introduce a new mechanic, which is all 4 of you have to agree who's taking which cookie for your entire line of people. If all 4 of you can't agree, all 4 of you will be eliminated. You have 2 minutes. The first 2 groups couldn't agree because nobody wanted the umbrella and they got eliminated. The final group that agreed, the guy who agreed was hated by his team. They're like, I can't believe you got us the umbrella. And most of them got eliminated because they couldn't do the umbrella. So there's it's really well produced, really interesting, hewing to the spirit of the television show while making good choices in departing.
Do they is this one of those where you have to have watched the original in order to get anything out of it, or
I
do they
don't
do it?
think so, but I think you'll enjoy. I think you'll get more out of it. I don't know if enjoy is even the right word, but you'll get more out of it if you've seen the original show.
Yeah.
There was one guy who, like, it's called Dalgona. I'm an old man. I'm the oldest person here. He started the Gongbu gang, which is what the old man called people. And I'm like, oh my God, that guy's a plant. He's gonna be the guy that the producers put in. He's not. I won't tell you why, but he's definitely not.
Was that something they hinted at early on? Is that not everybody is who they seem to be?
No, it was just my own, like, oh, I watched because you were asking about watching the show. I'm like, oh, in the
Yeah.
show they had an old man character. Like maybe he's gonna be like, no, I was totally wrong.
Right on. Cordkillers@gmail.com. We want to hear what you guys think we should have our I would say eyes on, but we want to hear what buried treasure you guys have found.
Cordkillers@gmail.com. How was your Black Friday, Brian?
You know what? I was so focused on telling everyone to run out to doghousesystems.com/rogue and buy a new computer where you get a SSD by making sure to use promo code ROGUE at checkout. Spell it right, ROGUE. But also, oh, Tom, I don't know how real to be right now. We have a very good puzzle box, and it's so good we can't keep up with it. So I don't. I had to spend this entire holiday season not talking a lot about it, but I strongly recommend that you guys buy a Vox Tempest. And I'm sorry to our artisan Ryer, who's just going to have to create more and more of these. And I'm sorry, this is what it means to grow up and build a production pipeline. This is what happens when you make something excellent. You make an excellent puzzle box that sets you on a year-long puzzle box journey. Sorry, Ryer. Everyone buy the Vox Tempest at scamstuff.com.
Go do that while watching youtube.com/Daily Tech News Show. Did you know I have a whole YouTube channel of tech stuff?
Oh my God. I'm surprised you don't have all of YouTube, full stop.
I mean, I should. And you can help. youtube.com/Daily Tech News Show. Let's scan the horizon.
Scanning the horizon. Scanning the horizon. Scanning the horizon.
Bloomberg's Mark Gurman sources say Sonos plans to launch new product categories in 2024. A pair of over-the-air headphones will launch in the $400 to $500 range. Those come as early as April. They'd sync with your Sonos speakers. Late next year or early 2025, Sonos may also launch a streaming TV device. So a Roku competitor that would serve as a hub for Sonos audio equipment, kind of like Roku's been getting into the soundbar area. Looks like Sonos is coming at it from the other end. That TV streaming device is expected to be in the $150 to $200 range. And Sonos is also developing its own Android version for that device and might even develop its own video service. So I don't know if that'd be a store where you rent and buy stuff or a fast channel or a little of both, but Sonos definitely looking at Roku and going, you know what? We should be doing that too.
Well, and Sonos kind of carved out the territory that Roku has moved into, but retains the premium status. Sonos was very, very early to create high margin, high end premium, easy to use audio experiences. And granted, I have a little bit of beef because I bought in on generation 1, and now they're nothing's compatible, but that's fine. But it's like they figured out the Apple-like experience, and while Roku has gotten more and more affordable, all the way down to being built into TVs, I think it's smart for Sonos to do the reverse and then instead retain that premium status and retain that high margin status in because their customer experience is exceptional.
It's a little bit like skating where the puck was, to use a hockey metaphor. Like they should have done this 3 years ago. Is it too late to start doing it now?
I don't know that it's too late because Apple has not moved fast enough for
in the speaker section for sure, right? They've got a very polished, well-beloved streaming device in the Apple TV, but it's pricey and it doesn't hook into speakers well.
Yeah.
But does it need to?
This is one of those where I don't think either one of us knows the answer. Is cordkillers@gmail.com. Dave Filoni has been named Chief Creative Officer of Lucasfilm. Filoni oversaw Star Wars, The Clone Wars, Rebels, The Mandalorian, Ahsoka, and is the master of the company. Filoni directed Clone Wars movie back in 2008 under George Lucas's regime and has been with the company ever since. Filoni will get power over narrative. Tom,
not just master of the company, lore master of the company.
Okay, Tom.
Yes.
How do you think I feel about this?
You're worried that this is going to be more Ahsoka than it is the Mandalorian.
You know what? I'm also a little bit worried that it's going to be the Mandalorian lately.
Well, or lately, but original Mandalorian.
No,
I mean, to say it's more something than something, do you have to have a good thing? Do you not like anything Filoni has been involved in? That's a good question.
I loved the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it was late at night. I was on the road. It was at a hotel bar. I bumped into this guy named Andor. I mean, I thought it was
okay. Let's stop talking about who's not involved.
Okay.
Because Filoni was involved in Andor. He is the lore master of Lucasfilm. So his imprint is on everything. And I have been told that nothing is created in Lucasfilm or LucasArts without Filoni saying, yeah, that's cool. So even if he didn't have anything to do with Andor's story, he had to sign off on every piece of its lore.
Then he has my vote.
So given
and
that,
my axe.
here, it's ask. Given that,
And my ask. What about a magician who eats fire in the Star
you have
Wars
my
universe?
ask. Given that, I think it's fair to suppose, let's do a little corporate skepticism again. Is Dave Filoni finally free to tell his story, Brian? Was it Kathleen Kennedy, who had power over narrative before, that was the problem? Or
I suspect that there's no money in division. There's only money in unity. So in the short term, he's going to toe the line and tell the same story that we've heard a billion times over, unless there's a breakaway hit. I don't know, for example, the
I don't know why they make him chief creative officer unless he has won an argument, though. I feel like there's an argument where Kathleen was like, I don't know, Dave, I think it should be more like this. And Dave is saying, no, it should be like this. And they finally got to a point where Dave won the argument. And Kathleen's like, you know what, Dave, you're right. You should be in charge of creative officer. You should have power over narrative. I will stick to business and make that happen because I'm good at it. Like that's a scenario.
But to win that kind of argument, you have to give a concession along the lines of, I promise not to
I'll stay out of this.
Your legacy.
Not necessarily. I don't know about that. Something else that has been buried is the future of Top Gear. BBC says it will not make new episodes of Top Gear for the foreseeable future. If you weren't aware, and I wasn't fully aware myself, host Andrew Flintoff suffered facial injuries in a crash last December. They had put the Top Gear series on hiatus after that, and they're now kind of putting it on permanent hiatus.
Last time I checked, December was almost a year ago, right?
Yep.
How did we not hear about any of this?
Well, that's our fault. We're not paying close enough attention.
Okay. I mean, on top of that, there was also the fact that the original Top Gear folks created their own version of Top Gear.
That's not happening anymore either. So
but I wouldn't blame if that was part of the Top Gear distraction. That's what the government wants you to think. They're trying to keep you looking at Building 7.
It's a corporate conspiracy.
The ATX TV Festival in Austin takes place on May 30th through June 2nd and will feature panels reuniting the casts of Suits and Halt and Catch Fire. Oh, man, to me, the biggest takeaway from this is, remember when there were fan events and we were all happy to go to them? How great is that? I'm very happy.
Yeah, lots of them are back. That's true. NBC's broadcast of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade reached a record 28.5 million viewers Thursday. 2/3 of them watched live, or whether it was on broadcast or Peacock, they watched it live, and the other third watched it on demand or replay because they rebroadcast it, right after they broadcast it the first time. It got a 1990s like 7.2 rating in the 18 to 49-year-old demo. That's NFL numbers right there. Nothing gets 7.2s anymore. Streaming hours were double last year's number, and it was Peacock's top live simulcast to date, beating out all of its sports simulcasts so far this year. We forget parades. We're always talking about, the things about live is people want news, sports, and award shows, but also parades.
Well, and parades, and we've talked a bit about those kind of high wire acts of musical numbers and so on. Basically,
yes,
people want things that cannot be faked and cannot be simulated after the fact.
That are best watched live, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. No, exactly. All right, let's see what the chatter is about.
Oh, goodness, chatter. So much chatter.
Hi, Tom and Brian, writes a person. My suggestion for spoiler in time is to go through some sort of best of episode list. I liked it when Tom and Scott were doing that for films on Current Geek. Here are a few list options you could use: Slate's 40 greatest standalone TV episodes of all time, IMDb's top rated TV episodes, and TV Guide's 100 greatest episodes of all time.
Okay.
I kind of
Part
like
of
this
me
idea.
absolutely loves all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, to begin a quest means to declare a quest, and you're either
Mm-hmm.
going to finish the quest or not. And we are rounding the corner on our Miami Vice quest, and I'm a little bit tired of this quest at this moment. So while I will acknowledge this is an excellent new show that maybe Tom and I should do, I don't know that I'm signing up for this.
Well, the genius is it's not a show.
I mean, but it is a
It's a
quest.
list of various shows, episodes.
Right. So do we get to do like 4 of them and decide this sucks and then leave?
I don't know. This is after talk material for
Okay.
sure.
All right.
Yeah,
After
yeah,
talk.
yeah. I like that.
Patreon.com/Cordkillers. Get in on the after talk.
And then Ron wrote in and said, Patreon member 97 here for Black Friday. I subscribe to Hulu for $1 a month and Peacock for $20 a year. What shows do you recommend for your viewers that are new to these streaming services and others? Thank you, Ron. You can rerun this part after Christmas.
Not gonna lie, Tom. I really thought I was gonna find more on Peacock that would engage me, but once Miami Vice moved to Freevee, I don't have much there.
There's the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade,
Oh
still
my god!
available on demand. uh, I do watch Saturday Night Live on Peacock. We get the ad supported version, so it's a little annoying sometimes. I think that's all I've been watching on Peacock. Whoa, wait. There was a show that we did watch that I very much enjoyed. We didn't finish it though, so that's telling. It's to the right of my line. But let me find it. Let me go far to the right of my line here.
While you're looking that up, in the chat, somebody brought up
Poker
Poker
Face.
Face, which I will
Poker Face is the
100% support.
Poker Face is what I was looking at for. So thank you,
One
Spot
month,
Punk.
one binge. That's it.
For Hulu, I have better recommendations. I would recommend Fargo, which comes out the day after it airs on FX.
Ooh, that's right. We have new Fargos coming out.
Yeah. Bob's Burgers is available on Hulu. There is
also we have all of the FX library, the
the full effects library. Yep.
Justified.
There's a great Korean drama called Moving, which is the one about the people with superpowers that are trying to hide because the government's trying to find them. And I just watched a movie with Aquafina and Sandra Oh called Quiz Lady, about a woman who's really good at this TV show quiz. Will Ferrell plays the host of the quiz, and then she needs to rescue her dog. It's a silly comedy, but it's funny. And so if you're looking for a good relaxing comedy, check out Quiz Lady on Hulu. So I have better recommendations for Hulu than Peacock, Ron.
Well, we're thinking about Hulu. I believe, although it only had 2 seasons, we both enjoyed both seasons of Dirk Gently.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's tons of good stuff on Hulu.
Yeah. But if you've got Peacock recommendations or more Hulu recommendations, send those to us, cordkillers@gmail.com. That's going to do it for us. Our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. We're live on twitch.tv/Night Attack Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. And I reckon we'll talk to you next time.
I guess we'll take pitches for the next few minutes, but otherwise I'm afraid it's going to end up being...
Did you watch the Wes Anderson movie?
Oh, Asteroid City?
Asteroid City, yeah.
Tom?
Yeah.
I would love to watch that movie a third time.
Really?
I would love to. Now, keep in mind, if you're expecting anything other than pure, unrefined Wes Anderson, you're not going to find it. But if what you like is Wes Anderson,
Mm.
then know that I saw this movie in the movie theaters twice, and I
Hmm.
loved it both times,
I forgot that you did
and I
that. I remember
laughed
that now.
and I cried, and my family was there. Um, there's a character who has 3 daughters who are named after, constellations, which is literally something Bonnie and I wanted to do. There's a moment that the father says, "Pandora, Cassiopeia, Andromedes." Like, Andromeda, oh my god, I will so rewatch that movie. Now, keep in mind, it's pure sugar. As long as you
It's
go
Wes
in,
Anderson. I know
no,
what I'm in for. I just
yeah,
haven't seen it, and
I mean, I don't know.
I wanna complete the set.
Rushmore had a little bit of meat in it.
Yeah, I guess you're right. That's true.
Pure candy,
Yeah.
pure sugar coated candy. I think you're gonna. I look forward to talking to you about
All
it.
right, let's do that. For next week, it's Asteroid City. Here we
Okay,
go.
perfect.
In 3, 2. It's spoilerin' time, my friends, which means that we are going to talk about one of our rewatches, one of our library watches, something you can find, usually for free, not always, on the internets. And we are finishing our Miami Vice watch, which with the very last episode of Miami Vice to air, not the series finale, mind you, we did that last time, but the last episode to reach air. I'm Tom Merritt. He's Brian Brushwood.
And now, when you say Reach Air, was it on NBC or somewhere else?
It was on USA Network. They found this episode, as I think both of us now understand why, too graphic to air on the USA or on NBC. It was one of 3 episodes that did not air on NBC and were aired later. 2 of them aired later on NBC. This one aired on the USA Network 6 months after the finale in January 1990. I think it might have aired on NBC finally later, like years later, maybe. But it did not in the 80s or early 90s air on NBC.
Tom, tell me if
Mhm.
this sounds familiar to you. Brian has a habit of, when looking at the artifact of a Miami Vice episode, just unbelievably praising the detail and exquisite uh, execution of the production, movie like quality, the fact that it's
Mhm.
on film and all that stuff. Things Brian usually mocks are the acting or sloppy writing for whatever
Mhm.
reason. Um, this episode, in every way, was the inverse of all of those. The production was garbage. Those were, we could produce equal sets right here on our campus. However, the acting was consistent and excellent, and the writing was bold and daring and out of the box. And there was a moment about 1/3 of the way in that I thought to myself, this does not feel like NBC. This feels like FX. This feels like The Shield. And then I paused, and then I was like, who's in this? And uh it's CCH Pounder from The Shield. And
Yeah.
I'm like, no wonder. Holy moly. This is incredible. I have many, many thoughts, but I want to give you the floor first to hear what you thought of it.
Yeah. Well, we haven't actually introduced the name of the episode. It's Too Much Too Late. It is episode 22 of Miami Vice. Uh, I did not figure CCH Pounder to play a junkie. That's my own fault. There's
I mean,
nothing wrong with how she played it. Or
none of us like this phrase, but let's say what she played. She played a literal crack whore, somebody willing to trade sex for crack.
I did not figure that would be her character. Because I know her from The Shield, I thought, oh, what federal investigator is she going to play? Because we just saw Michael Chiklis play, the cop from out of town. I figured, oh yeah, CCH Pounder definitely going to play that. So when she appeared, I didn't recognize her right away, because, she's younger, but also dressed up like a junkie. And I was like, "Oh, wait, that's her. That's CCH Pounder." And it just goes to show how good of an actor she is because, it was in no way like the character she plays in The Shield, but in every way convincing. Also, with you on the writing, I started to get an inkling about something up with the daughter very late in the game. So I wasn't totally surprised by the twist, but they did a good job of hiding that. And I didn't quite have it all figured out until right before they revealed it.
So, um,
What did you think of the Switek B plot here? Because this is the last episode, but chronologically, it should have appeared before the finale, and it very much shows a Switek on the decline. Whereas last week in the finale, we saw Switek sort of very awkwardly come to terms with his
made
demons.
whole, yeah.
Yeah,
The so disclaimer: everything I'm about to say comes from uh, whatever the actual experience that I've lived. I've watched addiction firsthand, and this was a astonishingly powerful episode insofar as it accurately depicted the three different options that happen with addiction. There are addictions where you turn away. There are addictions where you get lost in them and end up dying. And there are addictions that you hit a pivotal lowest point and then turn your life around. And all three of them are represented in this episode. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to not be emotional or whatever. But like Switek, we see him at his lowest point
right.
where
We see him hitting rock bottom.
yeah, exactly. And we see him turn around. We see CCH Pounder not making any changes and dying as a result of her addiction, right? And then we see Rico flirting with addiction
Hmm.
with this woman and her past that Don Johnson keeps reminding him, man, that's trouble, and then seeing him turn away. I don't know if I'm skewed because of my experience, but this was a very powerful episode for me, and I thought it was very well written and very poorly produced. It looked like a play. It looked cartoonish, but I don't know. I was proud of whoever pushed this one through because it speaks some real truths, like three different types of addiction. It's really amazing.
Yeah, I didn't even think about Rico as being one of those. That's a really good observation. I definitely noticed that, especially for 1989, they handled the dynamics of how you deal with addiction very realistically, right? They don't have the cartoonish like, oh, if you give her money, she'll just spend it on drugs. They had Rico saying you had to give it to her. You knew what she was going to do with it, but you had to give it to her because you knew she would find it some other way. And my mom never really got over her addiction. She died earlier this year, and she fought with it to the end. And that was something we had to deal with, which was, there are things you have to do, and there are things you have to turn away from, and you are not the one in charge, they are. And I thought the way they handled that part of it was also really subtle, and really unexpectedly realistic.
That's interesting because, like, that exact same moment when I encountered it, I thought, boundaries. You've got a girl. Yeah, I was like the stereotype of the person standing up in the theater saying, like, "Don't you give her that money?" It's like,
Well,
like
and that's the interesting part is there is a part where you turn away and you give up, and she hadn't hit that part yet. So I'm like, yeah, no, where she is, she knows like you're going to give her the money because you're still hoping to get her in a program. You're still hoping to do that. So that's what you have to do at that stage. She hasn't reached the other stage yet. And we never see her go to that stage where she turns away entirely, but we do see her try to rescue the daughter, which is a whole other situation.
Which is another horrific aspect of this episode, which
Yeah.
I understand why it did not show up on
So
NBC.
here's something that I thought, which was, and this is an edit that we're seeing long after the fact. It was an edit that was showed on USA. They have dealt with as sensitive of a topic as this episode had, uh, in a way that was less present, right? They use the word rape. They show him going into the room. We hear a scream. Miami Vice has done this exact same sort of thing in the past with a, I'm not going to say the word, but you know what I mean. And then we're going to cut away before he gets to the door. And that probably would have passed the censors. It's probably why they did it in the past. So I'm curious why they held the line, why they said, no, we don't want to compromise on this one. It has to be told this way.
I suspect it quite simply was because they knew they were nearing the end of their journey,
Yeah, maybe
and they
that
had
might be it. All it
they
is.
had, they had fewer F words to give.
Yeah, and maybe they knew, like, you know what, this one isn't going to fit in the schedule anyway, so why compromise? Let's
Like,
make it finish it the way we want.
it
Or maybe they knew it was going to USA Network. Maybe that was the plan, and they're like, well, if it's going to show there, let's tell it the right way.
that I mean that could be. I know this much. I was unprepared for how deeply accurate and affecting this episode was, and
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just me, but
No,
uh,
I think it is a deeper episode than most of Miami Vice,
yeah.
or at least the
Uh,
ones we saw. We didn't watch
well,
every episode.
especially because we're seeing Switek in the middle of the denial phase, where he's sharp enough to know that this is the part where I'm supposed to pretend like I'm getting my act together and
Yeah.
I'm supposed to go to the thing, and which is classic addict behavior and so
Oh
on.
yeah. My mom never made it out of that phase. That's just where she lived.
Ah, maybe you know what, Tom? Maybe you and I are in a unique position to evaluate this episode.
I think we are, but I flatter myself that I have enough objectivity to look at it and say it's not just the emotional connection. There is, because we are in a unique position to rule the other way and say this is unrealistic. This is a bad telling of this story.
No, and
Uh,
and I think that's what is upsetting to both of us, is that we're both in a position to say, "Oh dear, yes, at all levels, this is what
yeah, and
addiction looks like."
I
This
think
is
we
a
are
wonderful
qualified to judge that
meditation on.
in this particular case.
Yeah.
Not in all ways. I'm not an expert on every aspect of this, but there is a part of it that rang true, in a way that other episodes that have dealt with similar topics on Miami Vice that we watched did not. This is well written.
Yeah, I feel like anything more should belong in after talk. Patreon.com/Cordkillers.
So we're in other words, you're ready to veer away from the episode. You're, if you're not a patron, you're not losing anything about Miami Vice 522 there. But if you'd like to know what we mean by that, by all means, become a patron. Patreon.com/Cordkillers. Next week, we will be talking about Asteroid City, the Wes Anderson movie. So by all means, jump in and enjoy it with us. And then we'll talk about it on Spoiler in Time next time, which means it's time for me to say, I'll spoil you again next time. And so will Brian.
Junk, 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 junk. Boo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
Did I miss Rick and Morty?
There was none. It was Thanksgiving weekend, so Adult Swim wisely figured out that very few people would want a new Rick and Morty episode.
Are we sure about that?
I definitely looked it up this morning.
Yeah. I'm getting conflicting. At first, I thought that was the case because it didn't show up in my here's the stuff. Oh wait, no, there it is. Rick and Morty season 7, episode 7.
What? No, I don't have it.
Thank you, Jackie.
It says only 6.
That's weird. I have it on my DirecTV DVR. Oh, what? It just disappeared.
What?
Hold on. Like literally, it just disappeared from my Apple TV.
Tom.
Okay, no, it's on the DVR. It disappeared from my Apple TV. Wet Quat Amorticon Summer.
Nope. Per Amazon Prime, only 6 episodes.
Yeah, they haven't released it to the paying users.
Oh, that's fun.
That's great. Well, I'm glad I didn't watch it so that you don't have to feel bad about me having seen it and you don't. Because I didn't watch it. All right. That's going to end the live stream. Thanks, everybody, for being here. I'm glad we were here for you. Hold on. Let's see. Oh, wait, that's copyrighted. I don't think I can. Okay. Bye.